So thank you all for showing up. I know it's been a heck of a week, a lot going on. So I'm really excited to have Kwok here. As many of you know, he's a bit of a Twitter guy, a meme person. He's got this whole reputation. So we're really excited to have him back in the department. He graduated last year, I believe, yeah. And he's been working with Charles River and Associates in Chicago. So he's gonna show us how to get a job in the industry. So let's welcome Kwok.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for first to Ryan for the invite, and I'm really excited to be back here. Just a quick show of hand. How many are on the job market right now? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah. Job market. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So I think we have a good mix of different stage of your PhD program in this room, which is great because that's kind of like how I prepared the slide to be. And so I'm hoping that this talk will be useful to you. At least you're all doing something right, because before I was on the job market year, I didn't go to any event or anything that tell me how to get a job. So I only started to look for a job during my job market year, and that was one of many bad mistakes I make. And
It didn't say it would be too late for me to know.
oh well, I mean, as you see, it's not too late. And I did find a job, so hopefully it'll be helpful. So my name is Hua. I'm from I currently work at Charles River Associates. It's an economic consulting firm. It has many offices. I'm based in Chicago. The firm mainly do two things. One is litigation support. For those who don't know, that's when two firms or someone suing another, in front of a judge, and then they need economic backup, and so that's where the firm lend the support to most of the time an expert, either like an economist, an industry economist, or a professor. But the professor himself or herself cannot do all of the regression or all of the stuff. So that's how the industry works, is that it provides all of the empirical analysis to support the expert. And then the firm also provide a lot of support in terms of merger and acquisition analysis. So when two firms want to merge, they have to tell the government, and so they would ask for more information on the merger. Would that hurt the consumers, or how would that benefit the consumers? And so econ consulting firms kind of provide all of that analysis for merger and acquisition cases. But I'm not going to limit my talk to just econ consulting, but I'm going to draw a lot of it from my experience with econ consulting. But when I was in the job market, I applied for and I interviewed for, and I did fly out with very different firms in terms of their industry or the kind of economic analysis that they do. So hopefully it will kind of give you a good mix of places that you can see yourself into when you go on the job market. So. And feel free to, usual interrupt me if you have any questions. So the way that I kind of structure the slide is I sat down and I kind of, asked myself, well, what are the questions that I asked in different stage of my PhD program, or I wish I had asked myself. And so I listed out all the questions, and then the talk is basically to try to answer some of those questions as broadly as possible, which also means that it's not going to be as useful as I would hope in a very specific situations. But that hopefully will give you a sense of what you should do next to kind of gather more information about the industry or the field that you're specifically interested in. Okay. So that's what I'm going to start with. And then I'm going to just broadly talk about why you may be interested in industry job, either as a parallel to your inspiration for an academic job, or as something that you strictly consider instead of an academic job, right? So I'm going to be honest. When I went on a job market, I didn't think of industry job at all. right? So I took the advice of applying it, and, everywhere. Although I mainly consider academic job. And then somewhere along the way, someone told me that like, oh, hey, have you considered economic consulting? And so I was like, sure, why not? So I applied and somehow I ended up here, right? So that said, it's not too late. If you are already in the middle of the process, that's still, going to change. So it's good to be prepared, but also be prepared, for any potential changes up until the last minute, right? You don't know until you sign off. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, some of the good stuff and the bad stuff that you probably have heard somewhere, kind of try to put together a list, a kind of complete list so that you can see the industry job, for what it is, just a job, right? And then it comes with perks, it comes with downsides, and you want to have the full picture of it instead of, it's just a bad thing, or it's just an alternative to academic job, or it's always a good thing. I don't think that's the right way to think about industry jobs. And then I'm going to talk briefly about navigate the industry landscape, because the majority of jobs out there just maybe they're not on AEA website, or they scattered everywhere, and the hidden curriculum is just enormous, right? In terms relative to applying for academic job, right? For applying for academic job, you can easily find online a lot of guides for like this is the steps you need to take. In terms of industry job, it's a lot harder to kind of navigate through all of that. And then I'm gonna spend most of the time talking about the job market stage. The rest of the time trying to talk about the job market stage, which you may store it somewhere in the back of your head until you get to that stage. Okay, so this is the first to third year into your PhD program is what I call the exploration stage, where you might have a slight idea of what kind of research you want to do, let alone what kind of job I want to be, right? So one of the things that as you see people go on the job market, as you see job market candidates giving their job talk, you kind of think about, well, what kind of economist I want to be, right? Do I want to be an academic economist? Do I want to be an industry economist, or I want to consider both when I go on a job, right? So this is the questions that kind of start to linger in your head, around this stage, and then even more broadly, what kind of field that I want to be an economist in, right? So some of you are doing ag, some of you are doing development, some of you are doing health. When I started, I started as a health economist. I did all my field in health, right? After my second year, I published a paper in health. Then I found that I'm not really attached to this. It's too crowded a field. I just can't find myself committed to this field. So I switched to development. Spent a few years in development, and then I kind of did in health at the same time. And then I did my job market paper on development and education, right? So that's as far as possible from economic consulting as I can think of, all right? And so somehow I ended up, here, and a lot of it was due to, some of my random background in health that I did before, as well as, how well I did my job market paper, or how well they liked my job market paper. So it's a lot of it, has to do something with the past of your PhD program, which the stage that you're in right now, right? So you spend a lot of time exploring, and some of that experience is going to become relevant when you apply for the job market. So this is the second questions that you're going to ask yourself all the time, and then given these two, then you start to think about, well, what kind of coursework do I want, or what kind of experience, job experience, like internship or managerial experience, really want in order to get to these these two goals. So those are kind of like the important questions that I think probably a lot of you have already asked yourself about that. And then there's this preparation stage, which starting from your fourth year, that's when you start to have kind of like some research agenda, right? That's a fancy term for like one paper, right? You know what kind of paper you wanna write really well, that one paper. And so, given that one paper, then you start to think about, well, you wanna ask yourself, who usually hire the people that write papers like me? Right? And then, during this time, you also ask, well, how does my background fit into a typical economist in the industry that I want to work with? And then you work backward to kind of like, okay, maybe I should take this kind of courses, or maybe I should do this kind of research so that, a year or 2 years down the line, you'll become that kind of economist when you go to job. Okay? And then there are more questions about like, how do I explore more about the industry that I'm interested in? Okay, so these are the questions that I think are very relevant to the preparation stage. So I'm going to save the last stage, which is the job market stage at the end. But let me try to answer this kind of like 2 questions first, and kind of give you a rundown. So when I don't know how many of you started your PhD program thinking that you want to be an industry economist, versus how many of you think that, oh, I'm going to become a professor one day, right? But either way, the fact is that the job market has become increasingly competitive, right? Pick someone, anyone have been on the job market for the last 5 years. That's a single fact that's consistent across the last 5 years or 10 years even, that the market has become increasingly more competitive. And you come to the job market and you see people with like top 5 publication, you see people with coming out of a top program and still didn't find a job. So this is a single important fact about the job market in the last 5-10 years. And then there's another fact that the industry job have become increasingly more popular over time as well. And this is, I think, in a good way, because they pay higher, right? Or usually they pay higher. And then they also kind of increasing the possibility set for you, right? When you consider a job. And so you don't have to strictly become an academic economist. If the opportunity doesn't avail itself to you, or that's just not something that you like, right? Say you enjoy doing research, you don't like teaching, right? Do I have to become an academic researcher? Or if I don't want to do, I don't want to come up with novel ideas all the time. Instead, I want to use my skill set to answer a preset questions, right? So all these things are the possibility that an industry job would allow you to do, to kind of open up the things that you can apply your economic skill sets to, instead of just doing 2 things, publishing paper and teaching, right? So the perks is that it's high pay, and it's also usually impactful in the sense that your work doesn't have an impact when you publish a paper, right? Your work is impactful immediately when you turn that to your client. Sometimes your client throw it away, that's fine. A lot of time, the client will use that to their purpose, right? So most of the time, you'll see your work has some kind of impact. Instead of waiting for years and a lot of rejections before that, research become fruitful, at least in terms of internal validation to you, right? So most of the time it's impactful. I put a work-life balance maybe here because it's 2.5 weeks where I feel really nice about myself. I close my laptop, I go hang out with my kids. Weekend I don't do anything. But there was just terrible, balance. Like right now, I was working like the whole night last night, and I still, can't get things enough, all the things done. So So there are times when it's just like grad school. But there are also times that you find yourself a lot freer than your academic peer, at least in terms of the how do I say it? The self-imposed feeling of guilt that you're not doing enough to publish papers or to write papers. You at least you kind of free from that for for a long time. So there's that. And then I think the nicest part about the industry job is that the stress is usually backloaded instead of front loaded like a tenure track job, where with a tenure track job, you're basically going to spend the next 6 years of your life, racing for that job security, right? Which means that immediately right after you graduate from PhD program, you're expected to produce very productively, and immediately, to show that you're a productive researcher. When you start as an industry job, you basically, it's going to be an entry job, right? So no one is going to expect you to master, all of the work right away. There's going to be mistake. There's going to be mentorship. There's going to be a lot of things that you will learn along the way to eventually bear that responsibility of either a manager or a lead researcher or some kind of, combination. And so the stress is built up over time instead of, after you graduate, you expect to produce right away. Okay. And I think this is the part where I put it at the end because I don't know if it's going to be a perk or it's going to be a downside of industry job. Is that it's going to be more problem solving and it's going to be less thinking about, what kind of novel questions I can answer. Because I think a lot of us were attracted, at least at the beginning, to a PhD program because we kind of like the idea of like, oh, I come up with this question I can actually answer with the data, right? And so that's gonna be less relevant when you start an industry job, unless you're gonna be in some kind of think tank that allow you to or encourage you to continue to publish paper over time. So that's that. So this is the part where it's more controversial about whether this is a part of the industry or not. And the downside, of course, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but it's gonna be less secure. When I started my job, I feel insanely insecure about the possibility I'm gonna get kicked out of the firm, after a few days or a few weeks, right? I sat there and I was like, I keep bugging everyone, like, do you think I can get more work done? I don't know, like, try to prove that I belong, but at least when you first started, the feeling of insecurity it's gonna linger for a long time before you feel confident about your position in the firm that you choose to be in. And less research freedom, and it's gonna be less predictable. One thing that I often underappreciated about academia is that how predictable things are, right? You do certain set of things right, you are almost guaranteed to kind of become the known, sort of expert in your field, right? As long as you publish well, as long as you referee well, as long as you take these classes, it's a really set and very clear path, at least relatively, to success. In industry, I think that's more often not less clear. You don't know, when or how you're gonna get promoted. It's less clear if you're gonna stay in this firm or move to another firm or not. And so it's really unclear whether the path is less clear relative to academia. Okay, I'm gonna stop here and see if any questions. Okay. So I think I'm gonna list out a bunch of things here. I don't think you guys need me to tell you what kind of job are there available to you. I think I just want to showcase that when you're on the job market, you want to see a bunch of jobs from, for sure, some of these firms. Or if you're in a good year, all of these firms are going to be hiring And so you will see a lot of them. You'll see like tech firms, you'll see impact evaluation firms, you'll see firms that do impact evaluation in a very specialized field. You're gonna see all these think tanks gonna be hiring. You're gonna see the kind of think tanks that focus on the US versus internationally. And then the economic consulting, governments, finance. So there are a lot of different firms that can be hiring and very different industry. And what comes with different industry is that the path to get to the first interview or the path to get to the first job is going to be very different across the industry. And the kind of things that you want to do is going to be also very different, right? And so the question, the important question here that I'm going to try to answer is that how do you figure out that way, you know, to get to your first interview or to get to your first fly out in the industry job that you like, or you know, to ultimately get to the job that you want. Okay, so at the exploration, you know, stage, you want to develop some kind of understanding. You don't have to be an expert about that field, but you have to, you know, as you're right now, you're going to take coursework and you're going to be bored instead of spending, you know, all the time on Netflix, for example. Spend a little bit of time on, you know, looking for some of these industries that I said, and then say, well, what do they do really? What's the final product? What kind of economists, you know, are these people, right? You're going to spend a lot, if you're like me, or you shouldn't be like me, you spend a lot of time on Twitter, right? And you see a lot of these people on Twitter, right? And you see, well, what do they say, or what kind of knowledge do they have, right? And then you kind of backtrack it a bit and say, well, what kind of coursework do I need to take in order to become the expert or the economist that I'm seeing right now, right? And not just coursework, but also in terms of programming skill, right? So for example, if you want to become a tech economist and you tell them, you know, I use data, you won't get past the screening route. If you're applying for econ consulting, for example, and you say you do macro, for example, then there's a specific way for you to get to the first interview, right? But it's often less clear. And so at the exploration stage, you want to be prepared so that by the time you're on a job market, you have the typical background that people often see when they review your application. Okay, so why do I look for this info? This is the part where I hate most, and I hate LinkedIn for, you know, the love of my life. I just hate using it, and I think a lot of people go use it for signaling, and it just like every time I spend time there, it's just so bad. But then ultimately, I realized that it is the pathway to get to at least to some of this info that okay, as much as I hate it. So if you hate LinkedIn like me, sorry, I don't have any better news for you. But that's kind of the way that you have to go. So you can use LinkedIn as some kind of like navigation tool. What do you mean by navigation tool? You see the kind of the landscape here, right? Each of this firm will have its own culture. Each of this industry will have its own focus, its own product, right? And the kind of economists that they're gonna hire, right? And the fastest way, or at least as I want to think of it, a more systematic way for you to know about this thing is that you're gonna spend a little bit of time on here, right? As much as you hate it, or like I don't know. So something that I didn't come to appreciate until now is that industrial economists, I don't think they ever use their own website, right? I have colleagues who didn't, touch her website, since her job market year, right? And so they don't do that at all. But they do maintain their LinkedIn presence. And the reason is because everyone's going on there to do the exact same thing as you. They're navigating the landscape, and in order to do that, they need to then maintain their presence, right? And so it's a established infrastructure for you to use. Because of that, you will find a lot of these economists in the industry that you're interested in, and most of the time in the firm that you're interested in working eventually, right? So what you're gonna do is to learn the typical profile of someone who works there. So the easiest way is just to search for the firms, right, and look for people. Most of the time I stop here. I actually never know this until I joined the hiring committee, and then someone told me that this works. And so this is the thing that I think is really useful, because you can look for all these people, right? And then start to look over their profiles. Of course, you're gonna look like a creep. I don't know. But sorry, that was supposed to be a joke. The thing is, this is a normal approach, right, to gather information about the job that you eventually will apply, right? And no one's gonna judge you based on how many times you watched a person profile, but they will judge you when you answer a question wrong during the interview, right? Or if in your cover letter you say something that the firm doesn't do, right? And I swear to God, I read so many cover letters that do this little mistake when they say something that oh, I wanna do this, and the firm totally has nothing to do with it, right? Or I mentioned later, but one thing that a really dumb mistake that I made on the job market is that I told the person who interviewed me that I really liked the offices that they had, because I used to visit them, and they since I visited them, they moved to work from home completely, and I have no idea. And they said that multiple times in the flyout, and I don't know if that contributed to the unsuccess of that flyout, but I'm pretty sure it is. And then people use LinkedIn for networking, right? And I used to hate this kind of thing a lot, because as someone who spent a lot of time in academia, I kind of think that, oh, if you do your research well, right, it's gonna be rewarding, right? I increasingly become unconvinced that that's the right way to think about it. And so regardless of whether it's academia or not, you're gonna have to network with people, right? Sure, you can publish, maybe you publish in a top 5, that increasing your signaling a little bit more about your ability. But ultimately, people have to decide whether they want to become a colleague with you, right? And you can only do that through networking. You can't do that through how well you write your abstract, or how well you write your introduction, or how well you write your paper. And so it's a common practice to network with people on LinkedIn. I have now become convinced that people do this all the time, judging by how many messages I got. And so I become unfazed by and in fact I like to talk to people who reach out to me. And I think even at early stage of your PhD program, I think it's a good thing to do, right? If you send a message saying, I'm a PhD student and I'm interested in knowing what kind of things that the firm do, or what kind of industry this is, for somewhere along the road I want to apply, then I think maybe not all 100% going to respond to you, but I can guarantee you that more than 50% of people would view this as an opportunity for them to tell you about their exciting work, right? Because unlike academia, industry economists don't have a space to tell you how great their work is, right? I can't tweet about the cases that I'm in, right? And so I think people actually like this a lot more than than you think, right? So don't be afraid to do this kind of messages, and I got this all the time. And I think it's a really useful way for multiple reasons. Right.
So you're saying like people will reach out, say you want to go to one of these firms like the World Bank or something.
Yeah.
how do you kind of figure out and navigate who to reach out to? Like, do I just reach out to David McKenzie and say, hey, you're really awesome, but he's really busy and has lots of, famous co-authors? Like, how do people know to come to you instead of say your manager or?
Okay, that's a great question. So, so of course, don't reach out to David. But I think the general idea is that you're gonna, it's always gonna be useful to start talking with someone that at the same level as you, as who you're gonna apply for, right? So of course, people are gonna, try to message me first before they're gonna message my manager, right? Because the senior associate is the entry position. So reach out to someone, in a similar position as one that you want to apply for. But at the same time, I don't think you should limit yourself to that. And I'm gonna be honest, when doing the job market, I think I got referred by a lot of people. And the job that at least the first round that I usually got is from, someone high up that talked to me and then kind of refer me to, instead of someone at the same level as, the job that I'm applying for, right? So obviously don't, message my VP and say, you want to talk with him, with her, but I think talk talk to a wide variety of people and see, what lands. So, yeah, so, ask for a quick chat, schedule a meeting, so if you are in earlier stage, maybe you want to explore what the industry looks like. If you're in a later stage, when you start applying for a job, you can ask about what the firms do, or even the interview process. I got asked to talk to people that are already in the middle of interviewing, and they want to gather more information to better prepare for either the first round interview or second round interview. So and all this is fair game, right? And in fact, I think it's actually good signaling that you invested in trying to get this job. So when you interview and you say, well, I talked to this person, I think it actually sends a stronger signal rather than like you are being an annoyance to them, right? All right, so job market stage, it's the usual thing. You apply, you network with people, you do research about the firms either through your network or by yourself. And then, you're gonna prepare questions about the firms that you want to ask for, during your flyout and stuff, or your first round interview, and then prepare for, the interview and flyouts. And this is the part where, at least I hope that the job market candidates did not come here for this, because this is going to be exactly the same as academic job interviews and flyouts. I was surprised too, and I came in and give me your job market skill. Why are you interested in working with us? Do you have any geographic location preference? So it's really similar to an academic job interview. So there's nothing to see here. And then it comes to negotiation if you get to that stage, which is when you get the offer and then you want to ask for more. So let me talk a little bit about the application process. Slightly different from the academic position. This is often done by someone not higher up in the firm, right? So they're going to review your application. It's either someone at my level, which is the entry level, or someone from the HR, right? For the HR person, they're going to have to read your job market paper. They're going to have to read all of your review, your resume and your cover letter, and try to figure out, what's the staggered timing stuff that you're doing here. But this is done by someone more often than not involved with the research process, right? So you wanna do it like an industry job application. You wanna tailor your material, take the keywords from job posts and mention that in the cover letter. So I don't think I have to say a lot about this, but really, whatever job application guideline that you find online about applying for, a non-academic job, use them. Send your 2-page resume, and list the skills that relevant to your job. Yeah.
So yeah, on the resume, I had a bit of a question of, for years now, I feel like I've been building up my CV,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I've gotten pretty good at that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, the industry with this resume or, these portfolios that you start to present, could you talk a bit about like, what are the do's and don'ts there? Like, what am I supposed to be highlighting? Like, I know I have a friend who does like finance and he's like, you need to describe what you did at your job underneath it. And I just go, no, I'm just gonna give you my job and the dates.
Right. Don't do that. No, sorry. What I meant to say is that this is somewhat gonna be in hybrid between like the academic CV that you submit and the typical one-page resume that people usually submit for the job. This is the part where, if you have any specific achievement that you want to mention. Otherwise, I think what people are looking for is just going to be the skill set that you want to job, right? So for me, for example, I would write, well, if I'm applying for a consulting firm, I say, well, I work on, a health insurance firm and model, the competition, and how that affects premium. And so I think that's what I meant when I say, tailor it to that specific job. And so if you write a paper, right, that kind of slightly related to the job, just write that down. And that's gonna make the job of the HR person a lot easier, right? So yeah, so I don't think you have to write down all the things that you do, but I think just think from of this process as making the job of the reviewer of your application as easy as possible. They're gonna go through 400 to 800 applications, simply highlights things that you think yourself gonna be fit for the job and right. So that's the application process. How do I get the first round interview? Well, I hate to give it to you, or at least to myself, is used it. And what do I mean by using this? So I think I applied for, I can't remember now, but I probably like 10 to 20 industry jobs. I got like 5 or 6 first round interviews. And I think 80% of the time that I got an interview was because someone, I talked to someone high up and then they refer me, they take my application and push it to the next, to the HR and say, do this first round interview with him just to see how it goes, right? So this is an advantage that you want to use, right? Or in the case that you don't know who to reach out to, if you reach out to, say, me for CIA, right? And then you ask, well, who else do you think I should talk to, right? Then you probably can get to the next person that might be more relevant. But the idea here is that industry leans heavily on internal referral, right? We were, well, I don't know about our firms, we get, incentivized to refer the employees or potential employees to the job, right? So you wanna take advantage of the structure to kind of make yourself known to these people, right? So that you can get the first round interview. And so when I came to academia, this is the term I hate most, right? An old guy, they introduce, they get me to the job, whatever. I used to hate this term a lot, but it turned out it's just that it's costly to gather information about potential employees, right? For me, for example, I spend so much time reading applications, and I don't know how to narrow down to the person that I want to interview the next round. So it also easier for me to rely on someone's referral, especially from my colleague's referral, because they already talked to that person before, right? So this is the part where you want to take advantage of and really lean on it, just like they are leaning on it for this matching process, right? And especially for those that started this process a bit earlier, you know, like in your third year, for example, and you kind of develop a relationship with them, like say, they know you for 1 year or two, maybe their referral is gonna be a lot stronger than someone that you just talked to, you know, yesterday on LinkedIn, right? But regardless, I think it carries a lot of weight, at least through this standard review process to get you to the first round interview, okay? But how do I develop relationship with someone? Sorry, I don't have one meme. I forgot to make more, but anyway, so now that let's say you get to the first round interview, it's exactly the same as the academic job. You're gonna give a summary of your job, get paper. You're gonna say why you're interested in the industry and firms. And so I'm not gonna talk about this part. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time about these two. They're gonna ask you about, you have any questions for us. So I'm gonna spend a little bit more time about the two things. So why are you interested in industry firm? You can't answer that by just looking at their LinkedIn. You have to talk to someone, or you kind of spend a little bit more time to think about, well, what kind of product that they do, and how does a typical economist, fit in this kind of role, right? So for econ consulting, for example, we do a lot of the backbone analysis and cleaning data and getting the raw data ready for the experts, and the final product that we usually produce is an expert report, right? And think of that as like a research paper. The only difference is that all the data that we use, it's going to be turned, and all the code going to be turned over to the other side, and they do the same thing for us. And so we spend, the whole week after getting all their material trying to debunk them, right? So the role of the economist here is not just to do all the analysis, but also the critical thinking and asking, why is this wrong in the seminars and all of that going to come to play, right? When you get a paper from them and you get all the analysis that they do, you ask, well, what's wrong with this, or what's the assumptions that they make that doesn't seem to be realistic and all of that. So that's how for econ consulting, and you want to know the same amount of stuff about the industry that you're applying for. Okay. And how, that means just insert that again. One mistake that I think a lot of people make during the first round interviews is that they don't be specific enough about the job that they're applying for. And this is geared toward, the job market candidates right now. I think I sat through, I can't remember now, 5 or 10 interviews. And I think like 5 people would say, I want to make real impact, or I want to, I don't want to publish anymore, or, very broad term that show me, I'm sure that the candidates probably did research about a firm, but in that interview process, you want to show that to them, right? And for those that are not in that shoes right now, you want to be able to answer that question specific enough so that they will get you to the second round, right? And so in order for you to be specific, you have to do research about the firms, you have to talk to the people, you want to know what they do. And so when you be specific, that means that you spend time learning about this, and that sends really, really strong signal that you want that job, right? Because I think we, I can't remember, I think we interviewed almost 60 candidates for first round, and 60. And so if you be very general about why you want to work for the firm, that won't get us anywhere. And even if we send you the fly out, right, that's going to be a waste of time and money for both of us, because if you're not interested, then why go to the next stage? So you want to be specific, and that carries a lot of signals. And then this is the part where I think a lot of that trip, a lot of people, including me, I hate these questions, right? I don't know. Why would I want to ask questions about you? I come from a culture that we don't question, other people about what you do. Just you do you, I don't know. So this is the part where it matters. And you want to ask good questions here. Asking good questions requires you to believe it or not, prepare in advance instead of coming up with question on the spot. And I did this a lot during the interviews, and that's a bad mistake I did because I come up with really generic questions that show no interest to the firm whatsoever. That could not signal that I want to learn more about the job, right? And this is the part of the interview. This is not the additional parts. This is the part where you want to use that first to learn about the firm, actually, right? So a lot of things you can learn about LinkedIn on LinkedIn. There are a lot of things you can talk to people to ask about. But this is the specific the people that interview you are going to be your colleagues, right? And so this is the good chance for you to learn about what they do. Yeah.
But like, what should we ask? Like, for example, if you learn that they do some, I don't know, like consulting and stuff, and you get some bonus. So should we ask, oh, I read about the bonuses, I wanna know about that, like, or more about
Yeah, I think.
like how this work
Mhm.
and how to approach like more like the work or the environment of the
Mhm.
work. Like,
Yeah. Yo, that's a great question. So any question about compensation should be left to the fly out, right? I think it's the same gonna be for the academic fly out position as well. You don't want to talk about how much they pay you until they fly you out, okay? Or in academic position, I think you have to wait until the last interview of the flyout. I think that's with the department chair, and that's when you can confidentially ask about compensation, about bonuses and stuff. So you don't want to ask about that in the first round, right? Although I think or at least I don't care if you ask about it and I say I don't know, right? Because it's very specific to the contract that you sign, right? So my bonus is going to be very different from the same colleague that joined me, in the same job market, because it depends on how they negotiate for the contract, right? So it's going to be very different. Good questions. What does your day-to-day look like, right? What kind of analysis that you do? Do you do like regression? Do you do like structural? If they have multiple offices, then you ask about collaboration. How big is the team? How big is the team? Or things that you can ask them about. Well, you have any example of a project that you do, right? If you're unlucky and meet me, I say I don't know because I just joined. But most of the time, you'll get a really good example of, what their work day looks like, right? And if you didn't, stalk them on LinkedIn and talk to them, then this is a good chance for you to know, right? So use this advantage to learn about what they do. If you apply for econ consulting, I think the really good question to ask is, what's the average hours gonna look like, right? Do you work over the weekend? Do you work at night? Or even better question, if the two of you are interviewing for econ consulting, ask about the variance of the hours that you work. Because for econ consulting, it's not the average hour that get you, it's the variance. Right? So I'm sitting here now. I'm standing here now, but I can get an email saying, can you get something? If my client asks, can you get me something, in the next 2 hours? I'm going to just fly back and do it, right? So the variance of the hours is going to be the one that matters a lot to econ consulting. And so, if you ask about these questions, I think the interviewer is going to be honest with you, because they want you to know that this is the job that you're going to get yourself into, right? Yeah.
So when you stalk them, do you want to reveal that information or like when you're like having those conversations with like the hiring committee or whatever?
Yeah.
Do you want to like reveal that information? Be like, oh yeah, I saw you did work on this,
Yeah.
or like, Like, at what point is there like a line that you don't cross? or
Well, I
like-
mean, they put it publicly, right? So, no, I think it's fair game. I got asked about a working paper that I posted a while ago, right? And they asked me, am I gonna publish the paper? Do I have time to publish the paper? Fair game, I don't care. But really, here's it's whether that question is just gonna be useful to you or not, right? If you're gonna ask about, something that I did like a long time ago, and you say, does this matter to your job right now? You're gonna get an answer that you know the answer to, and that might not get you what you want. But I don't think people care if you stalk them or not. I think that's the purpose of it. And if anything, it's a good signal that you spend time researching your job.
Did we ask like, do you work on weekends, or what is the balance of the work is not showing by signal, like you don't wanna work much or something like that, like, or you care so much about the hours you have to work, and maybe they had to work a lot, I don't know.
No, that's a great question. Unless you apply for investment banking, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think finance people have a very different definition of what a good worker looks like, or what a good job looks like. I think for the most part, all of us, during the industry, I think we want a balance, day of life. We don't. I think it's really fair to say, well, how often do you work, over 9 to 5, or how flexible is the hours and stuff like that. I think it's really fair game to ask those questions. I don't think it's gonna signal anything bad. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Good timing. So this is the part that's gonna be relevant to exactly 2 people in this room. But I hope keep this in the back of your mind. Flyout preparation. If you do have a flyout with a firm, talk to the people now, right? Go on LinkedIn, search for them, talk to 1 or 2 of them, right? This is to tell them in the meeting, in the flyout interviews. You talk to these people, you learn about them, really good signal to have. And then the most important thing is you're not gonna have any bad surprises. So this is me. I talk about, I love their office, right? They moved to 100% work from home. And I mentioned it so many times in the flyout. And that was so bad. Now that I think about it. Or I'll talk about an industry that a specific office that you're flying out to is not involved, right? So for example, the Chicago office for my firm only work with litigation. And if someone come in and say, well, how's the merger and acquisition look like, right? Then that's kind of send a signal that, maybe you have not spent, enough time to research about it. Although I wouldn't, cross it as like something really bad, but it's really just, you don't take this as a surprise when then the interviewer told you that like, oh, we actually don't do this, at all. So the whole point of this is just to not get caught off guards that, that this kind of basic information. And then signal your interest. And then the job talk, I think for the most part, is going to be very similar to the standard academic job talk. And one mistake that I made, and I think it was a mistake that I thankfully made very early during my flyout, is that I thought it's gonna be a lot about like how is this gonna be applicable, instead of like, all of the identification strategy and the more technical part. I think that's a really wrong impression about the industry. It's gonna be exactly the same tough questions you're gonna get at your job talk, in the department or in any academic department, right? So expect that, and sometimes people are even harsher, during the industry job talk. Certain industries actually gonna care about, do you actually talk to these people and see if your ATE is correct, or just something that your identification strategy tell you, but you don't know what is real or not. I got questions about like, oh, do you have any qualitative evidence about this? I was like, is this an econ job talk? I don't know. Like it's so certain industry is going to care about that, right? And so you don't want to be caught off guard. And maybe this is, some kind of questions that you want to ask, with the people at the firm. I think the main thing that you want to know about flyout, and this is something that I think it's really important to keep in the back of your mind, even if you're in the early stage, is that the goal of flyout is to screen you as a potential colleague, right? You make it that far, it means that your research is interesting, your skill set seems interesting and fit, right? They spend money for you to go to that office. It means that they're interested in you as a potential colleague, right? And so beside all the technical rounds, you want to appear as a good colleague as well, right? So, things like be conversational, don't, sit and not talk to the person. If like the conversation died out, be prepared to like ask some random stupid questions like, oh, how's the weather? Like, I don't think people mind that much if you ask a completely random question, but to keep the conversation going, it shows it shows that you are interested in, continue the conversation with them, right? Yeah. And be confident, professional. And I think this is the part where I think a lot of people, it's really hard to strike a balance about genuine curiosity about the job, right? You want to ask a lot of questions during the flyout and show that you want to know whether you will be a good fit for the job, including compensation now, right? But on the other side, don't be too scripted. I've had candidates that really come in and it sounds like he's the perfect candidate for the job. He answered everything exactly right, and then at the end of the day, like everyone sat together and it's like, is this person real? I don't know. Like it's like don't be too scripted, like a robot, but in a sense that answers to everything, or that you answer everything like exactly the way that you imagine, right? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, something about yourself that I think make yourself more personal, like a personal candidate rather than like a pure economist model. This is the part where I don't think people do a lot, which is being attentive to the staff, right? I got interviewed I got interviewed with really important senior employees, but I also got greeted by staff, admin staff, and it turned out that they also got a say in my hiring as well. Right, and so be the colleague, be the potential colleague to everyone that you see in that firm instead of just the people that seem to be gonna make the hiring decision. Okay, and I said this before. If you already networked with someone, either through LinkedIn, talk to them, mention it. If you talk to them twice, mention it. Right, it's a good signal to have that you invested in the firms or in knowing the firms. Job offers, I think this is the part where very standard, like any other academic job. You get an offer, ask for deadlines, with 2 offers, use one to negotiate. With private firms, then I think you have to think about like visa and sponsorship, you international students. So that is also on the table. Things that I was not smart enough to think about, work from home option. People actually use that or negotiate for that as well. So there are a lot of things you can negotiate for and think about your priority when you get to this stage. This is what I did, although I don't know if it's like typical or not, but after I get an offer, although I'm still not entirely sure I would be a good fit, I asked them if I can talk to a few more people, and they were nice enough that they arranged like a bunch more people. It's like a second flyout to talk to me, but like this time really for me to get to know them. And so it's if you still somehow unsure of the job, I think it's fair game. So okay, that's it. That's all I have. All right, thank you. Yeah. Any lingering questions?
So I'm a first year student.
Mhm.
Does it matter like what is your focus like resourceful economics and so you do jobs that are like
Oh, you said you're a master student?
no, I'm a first year PhD student. I don't have right now.
Oh, you don't have a field right now? I think the exploration stage is where you kind of like think about, you know, eventually, what do I want to do? And so, if you hear a lot about like, okay, you know, the people go to tech or people want to, I think it's still useful even at that early stage to talk to people about like what kind of analysis that they do or what kind of job that looks like. Does that answer your questions?
So you mentioned that your field was development and health, and that was as far as this could be from litigation. How do you make it relevant in your interview that you're actually interested in litigation and like, you know, make it like somehow they actually convince you are interested?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So there's actually two reasons why people fly you out, especially in industry. One is to get to know you as potential colleague. The other one is that's the only time that we get to hear about new research. And so we're actually interested. I think the you know, all these firms, they want that, you know, it requires them to know about all these new methods. They require them to know about all this. So I think that when you get the fly out, I think that's already where they're interested in your research and your skill set, right? So I don't think at that point you have to worry that much. Now, in the first round interview, I think as long as you show that, well, a couple of things here.
What skills do you build that you think got they got there?
Yeah, so I do a lot of health back in the day, and the kind of data that I deal with, I think it's a useful factor. And then my research also looks at firms. Although it's a firm's response to education, it's still kind of like modeling firms' decision is kind of like something that was potentially of interest to my employer. But I think we fly out people that the education and development has nothing to do with firms. Really, either there's like this specific skill set about like causal inference or econometrics. You know, some other times they interested in, you know, the actual policy work that you do. So yeah, so I think if you are being interviewed, I think there's already some interest and then some trust that you would be interested in the job as well. I think if you just verbally, you know, stress that, I think it's I can't think of another way of doing it. I think, you know, when at every stage it's already showing interest on both sides that, you know, there's a potential to go to the next step. So
You say you applied 20 jobs? Because I heard other people like, I don't know, I heard what was his name? Say he applied
200 jobs.
120,
Yep.
140, and in academia, same.
Yeah,
Like, so I don't know, if you apply to academia as well, or?
yeah. So I applied in total, I think 80 jobs, which is a really bad mistake. But back then I just had my second kid, so I was, you know, holding a kid and then typing the application at the same time. So I was very limited in the number of jobs I could apply for. But I think, yeah, like the mean is probably around like 150-ish in total. Yeah. I don't think you should apply for fewer than the mean. I think that's the dominant strategy. Because otherwise you just shoot yourself in the leg. I mean, like there are people that have very strong geographic preference. think like I have friends that apply for like 5 jobs. And then they got a job. So incredibly lucky, but there are people that have very strong preference, and so the number of jobs available to them is actually very low. In other places, for other people, like time commitment and all that. So I think if you can, you should apply to as many jobs as you can.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Kwok.
Thank
All right, I think we have maybe
Thanks
like
for
time for
listening.
one more question if anyone has it, or if anyone online would like to ask any questions. Alrighty, well, thank you, Kwok.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Yeah, and if you have